Hey guys, week 429. Got an update for you. My Vinegar Syndrome order came through. Yeah, let's just hop right into the reviews. The first one up is from 1997, and this is from Radiance Films. This is The Eel, and this is by Imamura. Who I actually have never seen his movies. I know he's kind of a fairly famous or popular Japanese director, but this is my first time with his films. And The Eel is pretty damn good. This has the theatrical version and the director's cut on there. The director's cut is about 17 minutes longer. There's some different alternate footage and everything like that. So, the lead actor in here, people might recognize from stuff like Pulse or The Cure from 1997 as well. And he just has an amazing broken look about him. Really fantastic actor. He's also in Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins is the lead. Well, one of the leads, right? But he's really fantastic. In this film, he's fantastic. In The Cure, just a tremendous actor. So this movie follows this man who is kind of a salary man, and one day he receives an anonymous letter that says, your wife is sleeping with someone else. They're cheating on you when you go on your overnight fishing trips. And she has somebody comes in the house, and he becomes obsessed. So his next fishing trip, this is in the first 15 minutes, it sets up everything, so I don't want to really consider it a spoiler. He goes on his fishing trip, and he decides to cut it short, comes home, finds his wife in a really graphic sex scene, and proceeds to brutally murder her. In a fit of rage, immediately goes to the police station and turns himself in. He gets 10 years, and he serves 8 years, and he's released, and he has a pet eel with him that he had found, and he had it in the pond there. And he's really just awkward and seems strange, and he's picked up the the talent or the job of being a barber. As he was in jail, he had learned it. We don't really see much of that. It's mostly just done in exposition dialogue. He ends up moving to this small seaside kind of town. Well, it's Japan, so a lot of it is seaside, but you know what I mean? He moves there, and he opens up a barber shop right on the water. And he starts to kind of relate and meet the locals, who are all strange actors. A lot of them pop up, and another one is Impulse, and there's just a lot of good character actors and familiar actors that pop up, really well performed. And his parole officer is a monk, and his wife, and they kind of help him out here and there. But things start to get really clouded and confusing when a woman shows up that looks and reminds him exactly of his wife. And she has kind of a shady background. She attempts to commit suicide, and he ends up helping her and saves her. And she feels indebted to him, starts to hang around the barbershop. And it would be kind of a romantic relationship, but it's complex because he has this life that he's trying to hide from everyone else, that he committed this murder. He's trying to move on, and he doesn't really know if he belongs in society, or he can even function, or he can never forget her. And this woman that he probably has feelings for, he does seem to care about her, reminds him of his wife, right? That's what the kind of writer was breaking down in here. This character doesn't want this woman around because it reminds him of his awful crime. And things get more complicated when her past catches up to him and his past catches up to him. It's a really quiet and subdued film, except for the beginning is gratuitous and violent, and then after that it's just that kind of, it's a very, I don't want to say mundane because it sounds like a negative, but it's kind of mundane life in this small little place until this kind of drama unfolds. And it's not this big boiling pot of insanity that happens or anything like that. In fact, the little bit of drama and action, there's a lot of drama, but action that does happen is awkward and realistic and kind of a enragingly funny kind of way, in a way. And he has this eel that he talks to. And the eel is kind of this point, he left the prison with it, and he's always with him. And there's a lot of people that he relates to or meets that don't really relate to him. They try to relate to him, but he ends up becoming friends with them anyways. It's really well shot. The acting is really what pushes it forward. And just the film is, I don't want to call it slow, because that's not the word I'm looking for. When a movie has a deliberate slow pace, but it doesn't constantly, add too many elements or anything like that. It's just very much, these are the characters. There's not that many of them. They're introduced well. They are, fully formed. And we kind of just see this part of life, his dilemma, and all these things like that. And there's things happening, but it is at a deliberate slow pace to the point where it doesn't become too much. Sometimes you watch a 2-hour movie and there's so much thrown at the screen or so many plot points and things like that, you get lost. This one, you really get to soak into it. You get to live in this world, and I really appreciated that. I thought the eel was great. I thought it was fantastic, and he's obviously not all there. I mean, there's times when he possibly hallucinates things, and there's some reveals at times about possibly with all his past. Anyways, I just thought it was a really great character study, kind of drama piece that had a sense of realism with it, but also his sense of kind of illness can create some sort of fantasy in the world as well. Not like delusions or anything like that. That's a movie that we'll talk about a little later this week's show. But as far as the special features, we have an interview with Tony Raines, writer Daisuke Tegan. And he talks about working with his father. I think his father wrote maybe possibly an original story on this, and he adapted it to screenplay. But anyways, they worked together on it, and he said he had a lot of arguments with his father. Visual essay by Tom Mez, and that would be a year in look in 1997, talking about the change and shift in Japan and everything like that. So really nice release of a great movie. It's always good to switch it up. I love my horror movies. I love my cult films, but, popping in something that's just kind of a slow drama. I think that I don't take this wrong, but people that only watch one kind of cinema tend to have a very close-minded view of cinema in general, and I think that's bad. I think watching different genres will help you appreciate your favorite genres and learn more and things like that as well. But the eel, good stuff, really appreciate it. Love Radiance films, actually. I don't think I've seen a bad Radiance film yet. Thinking about it, I don't think I've disliked any of them. I've not given any lower than a 6, 6.5, and that says a lot for a company to have such a good track record. Okay, next one up is from Full Moon Entertainment, and this is Arcade, directed by Albert Pyun. So this has Megan Ward, Peter Bingsley, Seth Green in there. Now, John de Lancey is a Star Trek guy. I wasn't really that familiar with him, but he has a little interview on the disc, so he must be somewhat of importance. But Megan Ward was in a couple of the Full Moon movies, Crash and Burn, the Trancers movies, 2 and 3, I think. And Seth Green, obviously, Ticks. That's the only thing he ever did, but you guys know Seth Green, a million things. So Albert Pyun is a classic kind of sci-fi director. I would call him kind of an auteur on a low budget. And he made stuff like Nemesis and Cyborg and Omega Doom, all sorts of strange sci-fi action films that are really sloppy and low budget, and sometimes they work. Most of the time they become these kind of curio movies where you're like, what in the fuck is going on? But our Arcade, I think, fits a little bit more into the what the fuck is going on. So this was made at the same time they were making Doll Man from 1991, which is an Albert Pyun movie too. I actually really think Doll Man might be my favorite Pyun movie, but he was making this around the same time, but it didn't get released till 93, 94 area because there were some problems with the CGI and stuff like that. They were threatened, I think, to be sued by Disney at one point. Megan Warren talks about that in the commentary a little bit. But yeah, so what happens is it's a lot like Nightmares from 1983, the segment with Emilio Estevez and Billy Jacoby in there, where he has he has to face the game, fight the game to the death, and we also have these like virtuosity, anything kind of like that, where the game or the simulation becomes real. So this kind of guy who invented the arcade game ends up showing up to this local arcade, and he convinces these kids to play it, and he has them going into the simulation. It's really intense, and he gives them arcades to take home. Also reminds me of Brain Scan, which came out in 94. So if this was made in 91, it's pretty ahead of its time, pretty innovative there. So yeah, what happens is the game starts to suck people up, and it's up to Megan Ward and Peter Bingsley. Bingsley, that word's hard, Bingsley. He's, of course, from The Christmas Story in Death Valley, to stop, the arcade kind of in the system, which is the mind of a little boy. So Peter Bingsley is a weird actor to me. I only know him from when he's a child, but this time he's like kind of on that cusp of being a teen, so it was weird seeing him in this one. I don't think it took me a few minutes to register that was even him, even after I read his name. Megan Ward is, an actress I like in Crash and Burn and stuff on the Trancers movies, and Seth Green, is a solid actor. I don't think the acting is particularly great in this movie, and it's a very dated looking movie for obvious reasons, right? They're in a CGI world, and the CGI world is from 1991, probably recreated in 93 when they had that lawsuit, that scare, and they had to redo a lot of that stuff. But so it's definitely in that weird kind of, ahead of its time, but also dated incredibly for its time, and not for its time now. Ahead of its time then, dated now. which it just puts it in a weird spot. And it says remastered in HD here, but I believe this falls in the same boat with Subspecies 4, where there's no elements for it. So and also this one makes a lot of sense that it was shot in 4:3. Or 1331, whatever it's, box screen, whatever it is. So it doesn't look great, right? It's not going to look great when it comes to the widescreen, and it has tons and tons of digital effects, so it's not going to be remastered. Those elements are lost, I guess. So it's kind of AI upscaled is what it looks like to me. There's a lot of weird smoothness and no detail in little things, and I imagine it looked better maybe than a possible DVD. This actually was a first time watch for me. It was a cover art that I'd seen before, and it was one that I probably always wanted to watch, but watching it now, it just didn't have quite the impact on me. I don't think it's one of Albert Pyun's best. I don't think it's one of Full Moon's best. I think it's ahead of its time again, but incredibly dated at the same time. It's not gratuitously gory, although there is this really heavy kind of crazy scene that involves suicide. Somebody lost their mother, and it kind of, the game starts to play with them, and like, you know, like you're trapped in like the world of Cell or something, or Hellraiser 3, where, you know, there's these manipulation tactics where the game plays tricks on you, which I think this one does have some innovative stuff in terms of storytelling. And I know what Albert Pyun's trying to do, and he always swings for the fences, but a lot of times at the end of the day, it just never seems like he has the necessary means to make a truly fantastic movie. And he did make one in 82. I think it was his directorial debut with Sword and Sorcerer, which is probably his most competent movie. And I don't want to dog on the guy, because he's the guy that I'm always rooting for, right? And I know Radioactive, what is that, Radioactive Dreams or something like that's supposed to be pretty good, so hopefully that gets a release and I get to check that one out, or otherwise I'll just watch it on a bootleg or something like that. But this does have an audio commentary with Charles Band and Megan Ward, which is a new one. And man, Charlie Band is thirsty. That's all I'm going to say. But there's some good information from Megan Ward in there. Charlie Band remembers nothing. He's like, I don't remember this. You know, it's funny. He's so busy all the fucking time. He's a non-stop kind of guy. You know, he never stops making stuff or producing things. So the idea that he revisits his movies on the regular is not likely. And then we have a Video Zone, of course, the classic Video Zones, and John Delancey interview as well. The Video Zone's 10 minutes. The Delancey is about 15 minutes. So semi-interesting stuff. Delancey said he turned down a role in Doll Man because it was too violent. Maybe that's the role that Jackie Earle Haley got. Who knows? Anyways, Arcade, if you finally wanted to catch it in Blu-ray, and upgrade your DVD, it's up to you. Like I said, it is, I believe, upscaled, so it's not some new print, but again, I don't think the material is there, so you're not going to get anything better looking than this one, and that is Arcade. Okay, this next one here is from VCI Entertainment, and this is Psychotronic Collection Volume 2, Guaranteed Highest Quality Sleaze. Mondo Keyhole, also known as The Worst Crime of All, and this is actually an early Jack Hill, 1966, maybe even earlier than that, and producer kind of approached him, I think John Lamb, who did a lot of porno films and things like that, roughy kind of style stuff, and said, you know, I think there was some contentious stuff with Spider Baby, and said, you owe me some money, whatever. So Jack Hill decided to work for him, according to the commentary, and he made Mondo Keyhole, when he originally named it The Worst Crime There Is. And what this is very... It feels very much like a 70s movie in terms of plot, but, you know, roughies are pornos with, like, rape and, like, violence and things like that, and I wouldn't call this hardcore. It's most definitely softcore. But we have this big-time kind of porn producer. He does magazines and things like that. I don't know if he's big-time, but his name is Howard, and he has, you know, a beautiful wife who is literally trying to seduce him every second. She is addicted to heroin at the same time, and he doesn't want anything to do with her because good old Howard can only get off by raping people. So at the beginning, you know, there's like kind of a montage where he's molesting and raping people, if I'm not mistaken. And we have a couple long rape scenes where he's chasing down women, ripping off their clothes. And it also has this weird kind of, Freud kind of psychological, surreal kind of aspect in the beginning, like almost like a Rod Serling, as the other commentator says, you know, where it's like, imagine a world where... And it goes through this whole thing, except it's sleazy and weird, and they set up this thing with the the cuckoo clock with no hands, you know, no time to actually tell the time, just you hear the constant ticking, and then that time's never going to be up. So yeah, he essentially kind of does his exploits around, you know, town, raping these women. There's a couple parties there, one which is a pool party where there's tons of topless women running around, and then there's this giant orgy where there's food involved and a guy dressed as Dracula's costume party. Really bizarre stuff, really crazy stuff. Maybe a kind of look into Hollywood or LA kind of life at the time, if you will. But yeah, there's plenty of sleaze and plenty of nudity, and the awkward thing it makes this kind of stand out is so they're not professional actors in the movie. None of them are really. And Jack Hill even has a cameo, but they're dubbed over by professional actors, so it gives us this quality that is a little bit more, I guess, professional than you would expect on the normal caliber of this kind of stuff. It's a black and white sleaze fest. Now, I guess the original version was 110 minutes, and they cut out all nudity. I don't know how they managed to cut out that much fucking nudity of this thing, because this movie is packed jam with it. I would say the whole thing is just giant boobs, giant breasts, and like in the style of something that Russ Meyer would love, in that kind of aspect, right? That's pretty much the whole thing. Of course, our rapist does get his comeuppance because he rapes this woman whose sister ends up being like a martial artist who knows judo and stuff, and ends up beating the shit out of him, and he's tortured. He is put into the bondage gear. So that's kind of just I know people like, you're spoiling it. It's like, I don't know how you spoil this kind of movie. It's not horrible, and it is pretty much exactly as advertised. It does have some weird kind of crazy touches that I think are interesting. There's 2 commentaries on there. The first commentary, the new commentary, is the new 2025 commentary by Rob Kelly, film historian, podcaster, and artist. And Rob Kelly does a podcast where he talks about famous directors' last films. He does a pretty good job on this one. And the other commentary is ported over from the DVD with Jack Hill and Elijah Drenner. Also a good commentary, asking a lot of questions. Then we have Psychotronic poster and photo gallery, 2-sided cover wrap. The one with Jack Hill doesn't seem to think this movie is particularly great, and he's like, hey man, he's kind of down on himself a little bit during this movie, but it's a good commentary, and he did add some things that are a little bit better than your run-of-the-mill, I guess, roughy, and this one stands out to be interesting. I think interesting enough that where it kept my interest. And I wasn't bored, and I was just kind of intrigued by the whole weird thing, because it definitely feels like a predate to the 70s exploitation kind of movies where you have that kind of lead character that you follow around and just watch him do awful shit. So Mondo Keyhole, it is remastered, and it looks alright. It is a low-budget movie, so it's up to you, but I do think it holds some interest. Alright, next one is from Deaf Crocodile, and this is The Tale of Tsar Saltan, and this is 1967 by Aleksandr Ptushko again, and yeah, it's kind of another Russian fantasy. I wouldn't call this epic, it's only like 87 minutes, but yeah, this is great special effects, again, like the other one. You want to call it a period piece, but it's such a weird fantasy world that it doesn't really fit in line with this. So, in the very beginning, we have this kind of musical number with these 3 sisters, and they're singing, and one says, I will, like, make you the best clothing if he picks me. They're talking about the king. One says, I will make you the best food if he picks me, and one says, I will give you an heir to your kingdom. And so he comes in and he chooses the heir to the kingdom and takes her away, and soon enough they have a child. The 2 sisters are very upset with this, and the king's kind of advisor is working with the 2 sisters' mother, who also happens to be our newlywed bride's mother, into kind of getting the king away from her. They're plotting against him and her, and they end up sending him to war, and he's fighting against these kind of crazy little troll characters, which are guys standing full up, but the way they do it, they make this look like their hair, their head, and then their faces painted on their chest, so they're like little trolls. It's a really kind of cool effect, and that's very fun. I was very impressed at the innovative stuff like that. So they end up writing notes and letters and doing all these kind of skeevy things to end up getting the woman and the child, who's growing at a giant rate, in a speed, like it just growing to super fast, like 1 year he's 5 and stuff like that, whatnot, away, and the king is unknowingly to him. They end up helping this swan princess, and she grants them, or takes them to this like magical kingdom where everything is perfect. The king gets back, and he feels distraught. Obviously, he lost the love of his life and his child due to these horrible people. And he's kind of, sitting on his throne, and people come to him and talk to him about traitors, and they talk about this magical world that they've all visited where his wife and child are eventually. That's kind of the film, and eventually we're going to have, things be reunited. It's not as serious as the other previous film, like Ilya Muromets, or The Day the Earth Froze. What was the actual title of that one? I'm calling it the Sampo. It's not as serious as those ones. Those ones, I think, have a more serious take to it. I think this one's a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more silly. And in the commentary, of course, Stephen Bissett talks about that this is being based on kind of an ancient myth, and some people were a little tiffed off about it not being taken as seriously because, at the end of the film, even our king is like, hey, let bygones be bygones and everything like that, which is like, okay. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any come off of it. So these guys kind of just like our son traveling as like a mosquito or a bee and stinging the baddies and stuff, and their faces kind of bubble up like, and we have this kind of gag comic thing like that. The sets are fantastic. The outfits, the set designs are fantastic. The outfits, the wardrobe, all that stuff is really strong. There is this puppet squirrel on the magic island that he cracks nuts of gold. And this is really funny because everybody keeps coming back to the king and telling him that, and which plays for at the very end where he can repeat basically everything about it and back to them, and that creates some fun kind of moments. I thought this was really kind of, I dare I say it, cute. It is kind of a cute movie with a happy ending and much less grim than even an American fairy tale would be. As far as the special features, new hour-long video interview with legendary visual effects artist and film historian Robert Sotok, Academy Award winner, Best Visual Effects for Aliens, Terminator 2, on Aleksandr Ptushko, and the history of Soviet Fantastica filmmaker, moderated by Dennis Bartok of Deaf Crocodile Films. They actually talk about what the Fantastica films are, and they say kind of like how in Greece they only have like one word, for horror, film noir, thriller, and sci-fi. It's all under the same umbrella. That's kind of the same thing within Russia too. Now, this is before they kind of made horror films. They talk about all that kind of stuff. They didn't really make horror films. They thought that was kind of a degenerate behavior. So they make these kind of fantasy movies, and a lot of the Tarkovsky movies like Solaris and Stalker would fit into all that kind of category. And of course, the Aleksandr Ptushko films fit in there as well. That was an interesting conversation. And our special effects guy actually talks about using the same effect that this film used in Galaxy of Terror to make the maggot grow, which appeals to me because I like my maggots growing, I guess. No, I like Galaxy of Terror. New commentary track by comics artist Swamp Thing, a film historian. Basically, Steve Bissett, who's Swamp Thing and film historian. He's really good at what he does. I enjoyed that. And then we have a new essay by film historian Professor Peter Rolberg, Historical Dictionary of Russian and Soviet Cinema. So nice release, 5.1 mix, Russian with English subtitles, region A, 85 minutes. Looks fantastic as these Russian fantastic movies, or whatever you want to call them, fantastic hit movies do look. I thought they all looked tremendous so far, and Ptushko's films are great. I've seen 4 of them, man. All 4 are winners, so I'm looking forward to, I think the last one, the Deaf Crocodile put out, The Epic. Okay, this next one here is from Indicator Films, and this is an import. This is Cisco Pike from 1971, starring Keith Christopherson, Gene Hackman, of course, Karen Black. Harry Dean Stanton's in here in a really great performance. There's some other people that pop up in here, a lot of good character actors. Arbish is in here, and I can't think of the guy from The Hired Hand and Saturday the 14th. He's in here. There's a lot of good people in here. So Cisco Pike, I had heard good things about, kind of being one of these really cool LA location movies where, we have Chris Christopherson traveling a lot around LA. So this is like his film debut where he's has a big role starring in this one. And Karen Black's his girlfriend. Karen Black had such a weird career, right? She's known later for a lot of horror films, and she did them early in her career, like Trilogy of Terror and the Pinks and stuff like that. But she was in a lot of big, heavy kind of 70s cult movies and crime films and drama films and stuff like that. She was in the 5 Easy Pieces and stuff like that, which I still need to see. But I remember from Day of the Locust, where she turns in an amazing performance, a totally underrated performance, an unnerving performance. And this one, she turns into solid performance as well. It's Karen Black had almost 2 different careers. Chris Christopherson was more of a songwriter, a music guy and everything like that. Great songs and stuff like that. I remember him a lot from the Peck and Paul movies like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Always doing a good job. But he's also in Convoy. He's just a good performance on this one. He fits the bill right. So he is ex-marijuana dealer that just gets released from prison, and Gene Hackman is a narcotics officer, approaches him and says, "Listen, I'm going to bust you again unless you help me sell all this marijuana, a ridiculous amount of marijuana." And you really don't know exactly about Gene Hackman, what he's up to at first. And the more you see him progressively through the film here and there, he looks more unnerved and more sweaty, and he kind of reveals a little bit more about himself. And it turns out to be one of his most unhinged, bizarre performances from Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman did 3 movies that I think I would recommend or know of that are big movies, like French Connection in 71 and The Hunting Party, which is one, of course, that I love. I love The Hunting Party with Oliver Reed with a great score by Riz Ortolani. It's a good spaghetti western kind of style thing. Would really recommend that. Maybe it's not even spaghetti, but I believe it is spaghetti. But that's a great one. And of course, this one he's great in too. So Gene Hackman had a really interesting year in '71, and The French Connection, which is beloved by many, almost anyone probably, I guess. Another one. I don't think I've ever seen the entirety of The French Connection, which is a terrible admit right there for me. But why lie? Why lie? No, everybody has seen everything. I do have it here. But so what happens is Chris Christopherson has to kind of like run around with it. He has like 3 days to sell this much marijuana. He runs it to all sorts of people. Roscoe Brown is in there from the Cowboys, and he's also in Logan's Run as that creepy robot. He has a small role. Harry Dean Stanton turns in a tremendous performance as his kind of ex-like music partner who's addicted to heroin. Just a really sad performance in here. Underrated performance, I think that, the way Harry Dean Stanton would talk about his career and things like that, I don't think that he ever was the most open person when you hear interviews with him about saying how much he got into character and how much he really would do these certain things to be in there, you know what I mean? He'd downplay it. I feel like a lot of those kind of classic character actors would downplay it, like Warren Oates or something like that. They'd be like, oh, it's nothing, it's just it's an easy job. And then you're like, it's better than getting a real job. But then they put so much emotion into the performances and nuances and things like that. And Harry Dean Stanton looked like he knew how to actually he was very musically inclined. If you watch something like Straight Time, I don't know if he did perform that on the guitar when he's sitting there with Dustin Hoffman, but that's probably my favorite scene of the movie when they're sitting there jamming and he brings his guitar out and he starts playing it. I mean, Harry Dean Stanton is just a treasure. I just wish there was more character actors around like these guys, because honestly, when push comes to shove, a lot of my favorite things, especially when it comes to 70 movies, are the actors and the performances. And this one has a lot of good ones. The music is done by Chris Christopherson himself. They pick songs after he's been famous, so you have a couple hits in there that you might recognize if you're familiar with this type of music. There's even one I knew, but yeah, it's got great music, it's got great locations, it's got a cool story. It ends really bizarre and kind of up in the air to a certain extent. But I would recommend Cisco Pike. I didn't like it quite as much as I thought I did, but I did enjoy it, and it's a movie that I think can only go up, if that makes any sense to anybody. I thought it was entertaining as well. But the commentary on here is writer-director Bill L. Norton with film historian Elijah Drenner. There he pops up. That was made in 2020. Good commentary talking about the original cast and original ending that they didn't use, with Slim Pickens, of all people, almost hired Seymour Cassell in the role of Chris Christopherson. Walking contradiction, Cisco Pike, then and now, 10 minutes, kind of looking at the locations. Pretty cool stuff. Documentary revisiting film's Los Angeles location. Ode to Joy, 43 minutes. Film programmer and writer Kayla Janice explores the life and career of actor Joy Bang. And this is really great because Joy Bang has a good performance in here, wild kind of character that she is, and talks about her entire career. And I think it's something that's great to do, to spotlight an actor who necessarily doesn't get all her, her stuff that she should. What's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say roses or something, but I can't remember. But doesn't get all the recognition that she deserves. And she's in Messiah of Evil. That's the role I definitely remember her from, and she's good in that. She's good in this. But yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Kayla Janice wrote the House of Psychotic Women book, which is a fantastic read. If you guys never have read that book, it's a must read, if I dare say so myself. But, and then you have, of course, image gallery, publicity, and promotional material, original theatrical trailer, TV spot, new and improved English subtitles for deaf and hard of hearing, limited edition, exclusive 40-page booklet with new essay by Christina Newland, the original soundtrack, EP liner notes, an archival interview with Chris Christopherson, Stephen Faber's 1972 article on Cisco Pike, an overview of contemporary critical responses, and film critics world premiere Blu-ray, limited edition, 3,000 copies. It's got some nice stuff in here. Would recommend it. Nice little cool book. With Chris Christopherson, the man on there himself, died in 2024. And hell, Gene Hackman died in 2025. So a lot of these people are dying. It's a shame. Karen Black is already gone. Harry Dean Stanton is already gone. I'm pretty sure all the actors are in here. It is weird seeing the guy from The Hired Hand in here. I just mentioned him because he's so familiar as the villain in The Hired Hand, just scary. In this one, he plays not so a villain, but he's just one of his friends, and he's got the weirdest damn performance in Saturday the 14th. He's actually scarier than the vampires, and that's a weird movie. That's a silly movie. Not a big fan of it, but yeah, Alan Arbish, I think is the actor's name, who pops up at Greaser's Palace, is also in here, and it was kind of nice to see Chris Christopherson kind of flip out on him. I don't know why. He just got that energy about him. Not that I think he's a bad actor. He's good in this, and he's just got that energy where you want to scream at him. Oh yeah, Cisco Pike, check it out. All right, here we go. This is a 4K from Vinegar Syndrome, and this is kind of an odd one here. This is the Rage Carrie 2 from 1999. Yes, made a sequel to Carrie like 20 years later. That's the cover I remember, or one of them. And this is directed by Kate Shea, who came from the Corman School, of course. She directed, Strip to Kill, but she eventually went on to direct Poison Ivy. It's a pretty decent movie, but yeah, coming from the Corman School, she's going to have talent. She's going to be really good at what she does and be able to do it on a budget. So she was called into this project when the original director was fired. It wasn't necessarily working out. They fired the DP. They brought in Kate Shea, and she took over. And there's 2 commentaries on this disc, ported over from, I believe, probably the old Scream Factory release. One with David Takatu and the cinematographer, where they met on the set and they really enjoyed each other's company. That one's pretty cool commentary, and then one with just Kate Shea, which also has some good insight and everything like that. So she came in on this project after they had filmed for 2 weeks. They had to scrap everything that they had filmed, and they start filming this one. So the idea of making a sequel to Carrie 20 years later, or 23 years later, is really bizarre, and I'm not necessarily sure how I'd feel about it today. But this is very much a product of its time. This came out when I was 13, so a lot of the characters in the movie, the high schoolers and stuff, this takes place in high school, remind me of the time that I was growing up, because I would just be in high school 2 years later, and I remember seeing a lot of kind of like guys act like this and people act like this, and this kind of asshole elitism, bullies for like picking on people and shit like that. It was kind of like that in a lot of ways. Not that I was a saint or anything, but there was a lot of like douche bros going on in high school. But yeah, so we have this girl whose mother was put into a mental institution because she was afraid of her daughter, and she was schizophrenic and all that kind of stuff like that. And then we have I can't remember her actual. Rachel is actually her name in this one. The actress's name is Emily, but Rachel ends up having to go through foster homes. All she has is her dog. She's kind of an outcast. Mina Servani, what is her name? She's in a bunch of stuff. She's an American Beauty, of course. I always forget her name. But I can't pronounce it, obviously. But she's in this as her best friend, and the jocks of the school, including the oldest boy from Home Improvement and one of the London brothers, I think it's Jason London, Jeremy London, I always get them confused, are in this group of like 5 kind of jocks, and they basically have a point system where they sleep with girls and add points in the book, and whoever at the end of the year wins, had the most points wins. So that's kind of what's going on here. And London is not quite like the other ones. He's a little bit more sensitive, but the other guys are kind of animals. Anyways, one of them sleeps with Rachel's best friend, and then kind of dogs on her, leaves her because his friends wouldn't approve, and she commits suicide. This kind of puts Rachel over the top, and we realize that she has the same father as Carrie White, so she has the power of telekinesis. Amy Irving pops back up as kind of like the school psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever you want to call it, school doctor, and she immediately notices that Rachel has a lot of similarities to Carrie White and wants to help her to get that back. Obviously she feels guilty about what happened to Carrie and lived through a lot of traumatic events, so she gets involved. And we kind of have the same MO, except that London actually does like Rachel here, and he wants to kind of ditch his guys and everything like that. But, they're going to do an awful, horrible prank at the big end-of-the-year party, at the football party or whatnot. And, all hell is going to break loose, and you're going to have your classic Carrie end finale, which I think is pretty good. There's some CGI effects used that aren't great, but for the most part, they held up a lot better than something like Arcade. The flashbacks that they use, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. The scenes that they kind of semi-recreate, again, I'm a little iffy on. But for the most part, the thing that works for me is the soundtrack's very much of its time, so I have no problems with that. But what I do have, I don't have any problems with, is the cast of bullies. I think they're all really well done, especially the lead. The guy who plays Mark, I can't think of his name, but he's great in this. He's such an asshole. He is such a minor sociopathic character. Just perfect. Nailed it. And Brad is his buddy in Zachary Taylor Thomas, I think. I can't mix up which Home Improvement kid is which, but he plays Brad, and he's perfect too. So like you got the most douchiest names. You got Mark, Brad, Eric, and Chuck. Eric is actually Thomas, and Eric and Brad and Chuck. So like one of them's constantly filming everything, so that plays into it, which would later kind of be used in what the hell is the I Spit on Your Grave remake. The one character films everything. That's a common trope. You have one guy with a camera for some reason, but there's one of those guys. So it's kind of like the four jock guys. Jeremy London's kind of out of the group at that point, and like three kind of bitchy girls too that set this whole thing up. But yeah, the special effects are fun. It's a little long for what it is, but for me, it flows pretty well, and that's probably a lot of it due to, I have some nostalgia for this movie. I grew up watching it, and I didn't hate it then, and I kind of enjoyed the end finale. Overall, I don't hate the Rage Carrie 2. I think it's directed better than it has any right to be. I don't think I would like this if this was made today with this kind of style of filmmaking. I remember watching The First Omen, and I know this is probably definitely when nostalgia and particularly weird kind of subjective tastes are going to kind of steer people away from this or towards this one. But, I'm over here, I'm like, don't watch 28 Days Later. That's a bad movie. Don't watch it. First Omen's not very good. I don't hate First Omen, but it's like, I didn't love it. But, that Rage Carrie 2, go watch that. It's just like, it's a crazy world of being a film fan where you can recommend the Rage Carrie 2, but then tell everybody that, The First Omen or 28 Years Later is no good or you didn't enjoy it or something along those lines. It's a very bizarre time. I don't think there's many features ported over. They're ported over, but there's not many new features. Then we have the Dolby HDR, Dolby Vision. Then we have 5.1 mix, 2.0 mix. We have a commentary with the director, and then we have a commentary with the director, the cinematographer, and David Takatu. And it also has the Blu-ray, which everything on there. We have some deleted scenes with commentary, alternate ending with commentary, and all that kind of stuff like that. I did have this on DVD, and I did have it on Blu-ray. And now I have the Rage Carrie 2 on 4K. Okay, the next one here, I think was made in 2024, but didn't get a wide release until 2025, and this is The Rule of Jenny Penn, and this stars Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow, and Jeffrey Rush is an actor that I know is great. He's just an actor that I haven't seen it very much. He doesn't do a lot of genre films, so he's just a guy that kind of passed me by. He is fantastic in this movie. This is an Australian movie, and the director did the movie Coming Home in the Dark from a couple years ago maybe, and I did not like that film at all. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's poorly made. I just do not like the script, and there's a certain point in that movie where they lost me and they never ever ever were going to get me back because I just don't think that human beings act like that. But that's just my personal opinion on that. So this one, I was blown away by it. I thought The Rule of Jenny Penn was fantastic. It also stars John Lithgow. Like I said, John Lithgow is a madman, and he has a particular talent for playing crazy people. See, Blow Up. He is insane in that, or even Cliffhanger, or anything that he's done. I know people like him in the season of Dexter, which I'm not a big TV guy, so I've not seen Dexter. I hear he's great in it, and I know people go, "Oh, he's great in it." I'm not going to watch it unless I'm just probably not going to watch television. I'm not going to dedicate myself to that much TV. So here is the plot. We have Jeffrey Rush, who is this judge. He takes himself very seriously, has a sense of power. He is very judgy and has a superiority complex for sure. And in this brilliant scene in the opening, he is sentencing somebody to a hefty, sentence. It sounds so bad on the tongue, but he has what appears to be a stroke in the middle of it, and things start to get really weird. And we have this first entry kind of look into the surrealness where he started to get confused, and it opens up brilliantly with him looking at like an ant on the desk on his table, and you don't know where he's at, and then it zooms up and you realize he's in the middle of court here. Like, he's completely drifted off. He's not paying attention anymore. But he ends up getting sent to an old folks home, and within the first 5 minutes of the old folks home, this guy sets himself on fire, which is a bad omen, for sure. And you realize how much little supervision these people have right on the cuff right there. And he doesn't feel like he belongs here. He feels like he's better than this. And he meets kind of his, his housemate, who is this ex-rugby player who has a lot of, popularity within the real-life community, outside the community, and respect and things like that. And eventually he meets Dave Creeley, who is John Lithgow, who has this little puppet he calls Jenny Penn on his hand. And he starts to discover some things about Dave Creeley. He's this, bully, and he starts picking on people, just treating people awfully. And he never really did anything with his life. But as he states later on in a great soliloquy, John Lithgow points out a whole bunch of stuff that I don't want to say, and the speech is brilliant. And I don't really want to spoil much about this movie because I feel like a lot of people have not seen it. But Jeffrey Rush is fantastic. It's like, it does remind me a bit of Bubba Hotep, where these like two old folks trying to overcome an evil within there. But John Lithgow is that evil, and he's fantastic. And they made like put contacts in his eyes that make him extra blue, and he just looks intense and scary. I love this movie. I thought it was great, and we had this surreal aspect too, because as Jeffrey Rush's mind is slipping, he starts to see things in a much more horrifying way and in a surreal way, and things are scarier, and it has lapses of time, and there's just these scenes that hit to the point of absolute insanity where it becomes almost like a dark jet black comedy. I thought The Rule of Jenny Penn was fantastic. A brilliant thriller horror film that you gotta see, with tremendous performances at the heart of it and really great filmmaking techniques and style. I love this movie. I thought it was one of the top 3 movies of the year so far for me. The Rule of Jenny Penn. You can watch it on Shudder. Next one is a Thailand zombie movie called Ziam. And this is on Netflix one. And so I popped this in. I watched it in its original language. And this is some post-apocalyptic stuff going on. You know, the world's basically food sources are lost, all sorts of things like that. And basically, thanks to the brilliance of a couple people or one man, Thailand is kind of isolated and has a little bit more. It feels like it's more run like a real country or community than a lot of the other places. We cut to like kind of a Thai kickboxer, kind of Muay Thai guy who, a Thai fighter, if you will, and Thai or Muay Thai, we'll call it Muay Thai, that makes a lot more sense. And he's kind of delivers goods, and you have to fight off bandits and all that kind of stuff like that. And in the very beginning, we see how badass he is when he whoops the shit out of a group of kind of goons that come after him. His girlfriend works in a hospital, and she doesn't want him to do this anymore. She kind of wants to move back to the country, and they want to settle down, all that kind of stuff like that. But before they can do that, before he can make the commitment, what happens is there's this kind of load of fish that came in, and the fish is supposedly really good, but people eat it and they get infected with something. They get infected with this kind of zombie virus, rage virus thing. And what we have is kind of like the Sadness, except they don't like have the sexually explicit stuff. They kind of are like that. They're kind of just rage and violent and moving around, or 28 days later. Not you 28 years later, 28 days later. But, yeah, they go kind of wild, and he has to go through the hospital when they get locked down in there and try to save his girlfriend. What happens is he has to go floor to floor to beat the shit out of a bunch of zombies in Muay Thai style and gory style. He ends up meeting a young kid who is in the hospital visiting his mother, and he has to protect his kid and try to save his girlfriend. At the same time, we have that high-level guy there who had helped Thailand immensely, so they send in like the SWAT team to get him and his wife out of there and everything like that. So it gets more complicated and violent and crazy action stuff. Really entertaining. The way they shoot the kind of violence and outbursts is great. There's times when it goes down like the entire like down at each floor of the hospital, and you see these kind of crazy shots and scary shots, and the zombies appearing in certain places. I thought, or infected, whatever you want to call them. I thought the way they did that was really cool. And let's just say when these zombies get wet, they kind of evolve, which I didn't see coming, which makes it even weirder and crazier. Overall, I thought that Ziam was great until the little stinger at the very, very end during the credits. I was like, get the fuck out of here. But besides that, I love this movie. It was vastly entertaining, great action. If you like action, you like zombies, you like some intense kind of scary stuff when they're chasing you and doing that kind of thing. Although I am a slow-moving kind of zombie-infected fan, I do like this stuff too. I just don't like it as much, but I would recommend Ziam. I think it's good stuff. Okay, we have another one here from 2024, got its wide in 2025, and this is Dead Talent Society. This is a Taiwan film. I think it is in Mandarin. And yeah, this is definitely a comedy first. It's definitely comedy and then horror, if you will. I don't even call it that. I think comedy, drama, horror. So this is a bizarre film. It takes place in its weird kind of afterlife. Think like Beetlejuice, but different, of course. And basically, to sum this up, it's never too late to be somebody, even if you're dead, right? You can eventually be seen and noticed and things like that. So we have these two kind of, I guess you call them, like, for better term, losers in the afterlife, kind of hang out. They don't scare anybody. But in this world, if something of importance that is in your life is thrown out, you will kind of disappear within 30 days. But if you're haunting people and you're like keeping scares and everything like that and getting this ghost society revenue, they'll keep you around. You get to keep your life or your whatever your life is at that point. So throughout the society, there's all these famous ghosts and urban legends, and people got to create their own legends, and you can get a haunting license and all that kind of shit like that. So what happens is there's a big kind of like competition between these two ghosts, Kathy and Jessica. One was kind of Kathy was the older ghost, and Jessica became her protege. Kind of took off and ended up like kind of doing new things and becoming popular. And Kathy's very, very bitter. But this kind of young guy that works for Kathy, not young guy, but this other guy who is also a ghost. It's hard to say young or old because they all are like in their ghosts. So he ends up taking a pair of losers, especially the one because she's going to disappear shortly because her family accidentally got rid of her only sole trophy in life. She takes her under her wing and is going to make her kind of get a haunting license, become part of this classic 1404 hotel scare that they do, because everyone's got their gimmick, they got their scares. And it does remind me a little bit of something like We Are in the Shadows, but more for sort of ghosts and everything like that. It becomes this kind of ghostly competition of who could scare the most people and everything like that, while it's really touching and heartwarming all at the same time. And we have these moments where people are like seeing their loved ones in life and these realizations and these bondings amongst each other. Dead Talent Society is really fun, really cute. I'd recommend it. I really enjoyed it. So check that one out. Okay, now it's time for the Patreon pick, and this is Incubus from 2002. This is the Jess Franco shot-on-video movie here. He did another SOV movie that I watched, which is absolutely terrible. I think Vampire Junction. This one is surprisingly worse. Now, this is a remake of his film Lorna, and which I don't think I've ever seen Lorna. I think I have a Blu-ray here. I should watch it. I think Kino put it out. But so I love Jess Franco movies. Now, when he's in his SOV days, these are abysmal. Carson Frank is in this. Lena Romay is in this. Lena Romay was his muse up until her death, and she's in a bunch of Jess Franco's films and his later SOV ones too. Carson Frank, I know his name because he's in some Mariandora films, which is crazy that he's in a Jess Franco SOV. So the plot of this is essentially Johan Harker. It sounds very familiar, kind of like John Harker, right? He had made a deal with Lorna to give up his daughter at a certain age and everything like that. When she comes around to collect, he doesn't want to get rid of her. Of course, Johan Harker is married to Nina Harker and Lena Romay, and here's where things kind of get cloudy and messy, and I don't care anymore because it's sloppy. We have some sex scenes, of course, plenty of them. We have Lena Romay shaking and screaming and just being the absolute weirdest, like, kind of orgasms to death or something along those lines. And we have really poor cinematography. It's SOV. It's not done very well. We have really poor ADR, some of the worst ADR of all time. Doesn't even bother to try to match up to the lips. We have a dull, boring story. There's nudity, of course, but that's not enough to keep your attention. This is Jess Franco's worst movie. And that says a lot because Jess Franco was very prolific and made some bad movies, right? But he's made some great movies. But this is worse than like Diamonds at Kilimanjaro or his cannibal movies or Jungle Adventure movies that he didn't give a fuck about. This is just bottom of the barrel. It shows that, Jess Franco, I had some more appreciation for Vampire Junction than this one because he never wanted to stop making movies, and I can appreciate that. But when Jess Franco is at his worst, you still have some great location shooting, and sometimes you have some good cinematography, some beautiful location shooting. Now you take that away from him on top of it and he's at his worst, you just get abysmal crap, and that's what Incubus is. It's a piece of shit, and it's just kind of embarrassing for like Lena Romay and stuff like that. It's his middle age, and it's not like, oh wow, she's middle aged. It's not that. It's just like she's like in her 40s or 50s, and she's just like thriving on the bed screaming, and it's just not much direction. It's just a poor movie, and his SOV stuff is just not worth watching, to be honest. It's not like the transgressive or crazy SOV cinema of the 90s or the like basically like the fun stuff of the 80s, like Blood Cult or 555. It's just really bad stuff, and I of the early 2000s, and I can't recommend Incubus by Jess Franco at all. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. Bad Brains Horror, Hong Kong Godfather, add it to the list for 85. I'm going by the trailer, but it looks batshit. Machetes. I think I have that on my Plex. I definitely will add it or see it. If I don't, remind me in 85. Jesse Gallagher's here to help with the French pronunciations. Anytime a consonant is not followed by a vowel, you nasalize it. And if there are two L's in a row, they usually become nasalized. The second part of the title, Rosa la Rose, file would be pronounced Fille Publique. Fille Publique. The director's name, Paul Vacilaci, is of Italian origin, if memory corrects. serves correct in Italian. Chi is pronounced a hard C. It would be Vecilai. Vecali. Vecila. I'm like, this is like hooked on phonics here, guys. I'm sorry. But I appreciate it. I'd have to hear that said out loud first. Nick Mua from Belgium. Fu Manchu. Such a fascinating character. I've been meaning to check this series featuring Christopher Lee out. I'm pretty sure I will now know it's culturally inappropriate and non-PC, but hey, what are you going to do? Still, I hope we don't all get canceled. I doubt Christopher Lee's getting canceled. It wouldn't matter anyways. Question: when a film is deemed forbidden or inappropriate, does that make you want to see it more? It depends on the movie. If somebody's like, this movie's forbidden because it's a guy shitting in a cup and throwing it at a kid, I'm like, no, you can keep that. But, I mean, it depends what it's for. It depends who's in it. It all depends. Maybe it used to. Now I don't think so. Are there films you would forbid people from seeing or at least advise them not to watch? It depends the person. It all depends on the person. Each person is a different, level for this kind of shit and what they like. But there's a couple movies I would not recommend just on pure base. Anything that's so horrible, I would say. I would never recommend an everyday person something like the vomit and gore movies. I'd be like, no, don't watch that. They're like, have you seen this? I'm like, it's not for you. Recently you reviewed Harold Reinel's The Stranger of Blackmore Castle featuring Karen Dorr, Topaz, You Only Live Twice. Have you seen Mr. Reinel's horror film The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism, a.k.a. The Snake Pit and the Pendulum, the 13th version, also featuring Karen Dorr and Christopher Lee? No, I have not, but I have it in that box set. I definitely want to crack open those Christopher Lee box sets from Severn. Till next week, God willing, take care. Manuel Luna, a prom queen, was decent. I agree. Aaron Mazzola, oh crap, I forgot Ghoulies Go to College came out because it's not on sale like anywhere other than Lionsgate. Just ordered it. It's my favorite Ghoulies movie. The first 3, Mua. 4, we don't talk about 4. LL. I feel you, man. I love 2 and 3, and 1 I'm okay with. 4, nah, don't want to talk about it. Derena, 1869. My weekly relax viewing. Thanks for showcasing and reviewing your collection. I always get a curious purchases from it. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Way up. Dude gives me a hands up, thumbs up, whatever. Thank you. Martin VP. Thanks for you putting Rosa La Rose, Parvolos, and Creature on my watch list. No problem. Let me know what you think. Ken Coakley. I was only able to watch the first 2 Fu Manchu films, The Face of Fu Manchu and The Brides of Fu Manchu. They were both on YouTube, and the TV in the nursing home has awful picture quality, but the coloring process was Technicolor. From Technicolor. The Face of Fu Manchu was pretty dark in terms of storyline. Fu Manchu was fighting to take over China's heroin trade. The Brides of Fu Manchu had him trying to keep a scientist alive to create the ice-like substance. In 2025, Charlie Chan and Fu Manchu have both been played by white European actors. In the old Charlie Chan film, Sidney Tolar and Warner Oland played him. Ki Luke, who played Kato in the Green Hornet Cliffhangers during the 40s and provided the voice of Charlie Chan in the Amazing Chan Clan in the early 70s, as well as provided the English voice of Han in Enter the Dragon, and played the abbot at the Shaolin Temple of Kung Fu. Was number 1 son while Son 2 was played by Victor Sen Young and Benson Fong was Son 3. Charlie Chan was based on a real-life detective in Honolulu's police department. He was a legend because he also solved all his cases. Back in the 90s, Miramax filmed the Charlie Chan films that starred Russell Wong as Charlie Chan. Wong was a young, good-looking man who appeared in the Joy Luck Club Romeo Must Die. The movie was shelved in the early 2000s. Lucy Liu was going to play Chan, but the film never got off the ground. Fu Manchu is another character that has always been played by white actors. In fact, Peter Sellers played Charlie Chan in the Neil Simon's Murder by Death and played Fu Manchu in the last film, The Fiendish Plot of Fu Manchu. I would like to see Charlie Chan film with Kent Chang. He's rotund and has a mustache. Love Kent Chang. That's a good call. Let's get into the update, guys. Alright, hop in this update. Yongary, Monster from the Deep, 4K here. Not seen this one, giant monster movie. I have heard of it. I'm sure I had a DVD of it somewhere. Next up is a 4K of The Card Player by Dario Argento. Not a huge fan of this movie. In fact, it's one of my least favorite Dario Argento movies, along with Giallo. Next up, we have Nick Millard Action Collection from VSA. It's got a bunch of movies on here. Where we got here? I think the back here says it all. 357 Magnum, One Armed Warrior, Alcatraz Breakout, Silent Street Race, and Shotgun. Now, Nick Millard did some horror films. I think, Crazy Fat Ethel, Criminally Insane, Satan's Black Wedding. So, yeah, I'd never seen his action movies. I don't even think I've ever seen his horror movies, although I bought them 4 or 5 times in my life. Then we have Fire, Maidens, or Of Outer Space. This is a VSL, if I'm not mistaken. Looks fun, sci-fi kind of horror. Then we have 5 Dead on Crimson Canvas. This is the Dagazar video. Not heard of this film. I mean, I've not seen this film. I have heard of it. I think I probably had a DVD years ago. But Dagazar's pretty cool company. And then we have Anita, a Swedish Nymphet. And I don't think I can show the back of this one. I'll show this. It's got the Japanese classic Nakatsu style cover here, which I always love those kind of covers. With Anita, what is it? Geez, I can't think of Anita. Christina Lindberg. I want to keep calling her Anita. Yeah, and Stellan Skarsgård's in this. Crazy. But Christina Lindberg, obviously, from Thriller, A Cruel Picture. Only the River Flows. This was, I can't remember the country. Maybe just China, I think it was. And this is like a murder mystery. Sounded pretty interesting. This is one of their new labels I'm not too familiar with. What does that say? Kimshim? Then we have the Heatwave, lasted 4 days. This is from the Canadian International one, is it? Canadian International Pictures. Looks like Lawrence Dane on the cover there. It's kind of crime film here, so I picked this up. And then we have Twisted Issues by Charles Pinion. Saturn's Core, a psychic punk splatter comedy by Charles Pinion, 80-minute movie. Seen one of Charles Pinion's movies, and it was crazy. Good stuff. SOV, of course. And then last, we have a 4K of Danger Diabolik from Kino Lorber, directed by Mario Bava, starring John Philip Law. There we go. That's right. Looks wild. Classic Italian spy kind of deal. Never seen it. Looking forward to it. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.